Are you ready to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level?
Want to learn from someone with more than a decade of experience, training tens of thousands of people from all around the world?
Hi, Cliff. This is Pauline from Auckland, New Zealand.
John from Calgary, Alberta.
Amy Porterfield.
Michael Hyatt.
Dan here from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Ray Edwards.
Mark Mason. Mike Stelzner.
Pat from Smart Passive Income.
It's Darren from Melbourne, Australia.
Now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in the world.
Welcome to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Here's your host, Cliff Ravenscraft.
That's right, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. So excited to be here in this very special episode. This, my friends, is episode number 600. And you know, there's this temptation to think that episode 600 has to be super fancy, super special, and quite frankly, I began working on an extremely elaborate outline that was going to document some of my highlights of the podcasting journey all the way from the beginning and all this other stuff. And I got to thinking, man, I've got so many other projects that I'm working on, and to be able to pull off what I had anticipated in my mind that I wanted to pull off for a 600th podcast episode, it would have taken me about 2 to 3 full days. And well, as you guys know, I'm in full marketing swing for Free the Dream 2019, and there are other projects that are afoot here in the Next Level Studio. I may just give you a brief update about some of that. But before I do, I went ahead and started the work on an elaborate outline. I didn't get too far into it, but it'd be a shame for me to let any of the work that I did do go to waste. So before I begin, let me just say this. There is so much value in the principle of just getting started with what you have right now. Stop talking about what it is that you want in life. Stop telling everybody what you're going to do. And start right now taking massive action. You do not have to have everything perfect. It does not have to be polished. You can just hit record and publish if it's a podcast episode. You can just write some stuff and hit send if it's an email newsletter or a blog. You could just record some videos, upload them into some course software, and put up a darn sales page and let people know it's available for purchase. Just start today. And don't just start today and research and dabble and stick your toe. Jump in head first and just realize the water might be cold afterwards. You'll probably survive. And so, you know, just start. Just start. You see, I started podcasting 13 and a half years ago. I mean, that is insane for me to just think about. 13 and a half years of my life have been devoted to creating podcast audio content. Podcasting has only been around for 15 years. So for 13 and a half of the 15 years, I have been recording and publishing podcast content that has been entertaining, educational. It has encouraged hundreds of thousands of people around the world and has inspired a countless number of people to take action, to pursue the lives for which they were created. And it all started for me with just a desire to do something as a hobby. It's like, hey, I've been listening to podcasts for quite some time. I love these tech podcasts from my friend Leo Laporte. I love this entertaining podcast from Adam Curry called The Daily Source Code. I love this show called what was it called? The Daily Breakfast with Father Roderick von Hogan, and he had the Catholic Insider, which I wasn't even Catholic, but I found it fascinating. These audio tours. I was loving the world of podcasts, and there were 5 different podcasts devoted to the TV show Lost. There were only about 100 podcasts in existence, and 5 of them were devoted to the TV show Lost, and I was loving podcasts, and I'm like, I think I want to create one of those. So I didn't just say, oh, well, let me just plan out a launch strategy and stuff. No, I went to Best Buy after doing a little bit of research of what I need. I realized I already had a laptop. I could download some free software off of the internet called Audacity. I went to Best Buy and I bought myself one of those cheap $35 headphones with the little plastic microphone off to the side. It wasn't even USB at the time. USB was around. It was brand new as a technology. And what happened was I got the $35 instead of the $65 version. And it had the 2 1/8-inch plugs. I plugged into the headphone jack and the microphone jack on my laptop. And by golly, I was ready to record and publish my episode. From the time I decided or even desired to have my own podcast, I had everything researched and I went to Best Buy, and by the end of the day, I already published my first podcast episode. Was it pretty? Not at all. Nope. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you 4 minutes and 44 seconds of my very first ever podcast episode that I ever published that day on December 16th, 2005. This was my first go at podcasting.
This is Generally Speaking, a podcast production of Cliff Ravenscraft and Friends. Hello and welcome to the show. This is my very first podcast for Generally Speaking. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft. I'm in Hebron, Kentucky, and I just want to go over with you a couple things to get this thing started. First off, I want to talk to you about the format of the show. I could not decide whether or not I wanted to do another Lost podcast that is 100% all Lost related items, just like various other shows that I'll mention in just a moment, or if I wanted to do a technology related podcast, like many of them out there, or if I wanted to do a faith-based podcast like some other podcasts out there. The thing is I'm definitely passionate about the TV show Lost. I'm also passionate about technology, and as far as faith is concerned, I'm not only a Christian, but I'm also a pastor as well. So some of you are thinking, let's see, a Christian pastor watching and obsessed with Lost. Okay, so you're going to find out why I say that I'm too pagan for some of my Christian friends, and too Christian for some of my pagan friends. Hopefully, the fact that I'm a Christian pastor won't turn you off, and in fact, I think I might be able to provide some valuable insight into the show, seeing as how there is a lot of religious themes, and even the next episode that is going to be titled The 23rd Psalm. So, I think I'll have a unique perspective, and I think you'll find that I won't be too offensive to those of you who are not Christians. Anyway, that's about me. As far as the format of this show, obviously the title is Generally Speaking. The reason why I chose that title is because this is going to be a multi-format, multi-topical podcast. As far as the format, multi-format, I mean that sometimes it's going to be just myself like this. I'll just be talking to you guys and telling you what's going on. And there'll be sometimes we'll have panel discussions. I'll have my neighbors over who also love the show Lost, and we'll sit around our kitchen table with the microphone and the tape recorder rolling, and we will discuss Lost among other topics or whatever. And there'll be some good panel discussion. Also, I plan on doing interviews. Maybe I can get somebody like Hurley and Jorge Garcia and all the other folks out there to allow me to do some interviews. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but I'd like to. at the very least, I'd like to interview some of my favorite podcasters out there, Lost Casters. And I'll go over that again in just a moment. But anyway, as far as topics are concerned, obviously I've decided that I'm going to do some of these podcasts. The shows will be devoted just to Lost. Some of my shows will be devoted simply to technology. And some of them will be faith-based podcasts. Now that sounds confusing. You've subscribed to this probably since you're listening to this one. You've subscribed because you wanted to hear another podcast about Lost. And how are you going to know the difference between, when Cliff's talking about Lost or technology or faith and, oh my goodness, I signed up for the wrong podcast. Well, don't worry about it. Because most podcasts that are out there, they'll simply name their files Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3. Well, you don't have to worry about that here. When you subscribe to our feed, basically what will happen is I'm going to name our files Lostcast, December 16th, 2005. Or it'll say TechCast, December 16th, 2005. Or it'll say Faithcast, December 16th, 2005. So immediately once your podcast subscription service downloads the file, you'll know right as you look at it, before you even click on anything, you'll know exactly what subject is being discussed. And I'm sure you'll see a lot more Lost casts than anything else. So if you're interested in Lost, this is the right place for you. Let's talk about Lost, since that's what I've obviously titled this first show. As far as other podcasts out there, I know that this is not the first one, and in fact, it's definitely not going to be the best one.
So there you go. That's the first 4 minutes and 44 seconds of my very first ever podcast. I mean, there are so many things that I could criticize about that. Number one, the really cheesy intro music. I mean, come on. The audio quality, compared to my standards today, I consider it to be pretty terrible audio quality. But we all had terrible audio quality back then. But again, $35 is all it took for me to invest into getting that up and running. I did a count as that was playing through. I did a running tally. I don't know if you know this, but from the time I hit record on this episode until I played that audio clip for you, I'm not consciously aware of any ums or uhs or any of that stuff at all. Now, chances are there may be one or two of them, okay? But here's what I did. That was my first ever podcast episode. I counted 49 uhs or ums in the first 4 minutes and 44 seconds. 49! I mean, that's insane. Oh my gosh, it's embarrassing to me today. But you know what? I didn't let it keep me from starting. And then not only that, but I didn't actually have to sit there and think to myself, and this is something that I know that has held a lot of people back from creating a podcast. Well, how am I going to make mine unique? How am I going to stand out from all of the rest? And all of this, I hear these things over and over again. I didn't think about that once. Matter of fact, right there at the very end, this is definitely not the first podcast devoted to Lost, and it's probably, no, I didn't even say probably. I said it's definitely not going to be the best one. I'm not here to impress anyone, but you want to know what? If you go back and listen to that 4 minutes and 44 seconds, one thing has never changed. That from that very first episode, I knew for a fact, I was absolutely aware of the value that I would bring to the conversation. That's something I never questioned from episode 1. I didn't have to have the best audio quality. I didn't have to have the best communication style. I didn't go in and edit out all my ums and uhs and all 49 of them just within the first 4 minutes and 45 seconds. I think I'd lose count if I counted all the way to the end of that episode. No, I didn't have to be the best. None of that mattered to me. All I knew is that there were some things that I could say about the TV show Lost in that podcast that was not being said anywhere else. And it was my perspective, my thoughts based upon my experiences, the things that I have learned in life, my dreams, hopes, and visions of the future, and how I resonate with the themes of that television show. And you know what? Oh my gosh, the decision to just go and do that, to record and publish that first episode, as imperfect as it was, that decision and that massive action that I took changed my life in ways that I would have never dreamed possible that day. You see, right after I published that, I had approximately 500 people who downloaded that episode within 24 hours. Now, hear me out. I already had an extremely active blog at the time, which was already focused and directed at the Lost fan community, which had millions of fans around the world. And I'd already been featured in an article of Entertainment Weekly or EW.com at the time because of a theory that I posted. So I already had a large community, but about 500 people who checked out my blog on a consistent basis saw me blog post about my podcast episode, and they said, "Oh my gosh, Cliff, I love this. Will you do me a favor? Will you please devote a podcast only to the TV show Lost? I don't care about your faith, and not to be offensive, but it's just not what I want to hear from you. And I'm not interested in your thoughts on technology. Will you please do a Lost podcast just in and of itself?" And so I came back to the second episode of that podcast and I said, "Welcome to the weekly Lost edition of the Generally Speaking Podcast Network." And the cool thing is if you go to lostpodcast.com, you will see that, by the way, my wife joined me shortly after the first episode. It was either the second or third episode. Stephanie joined me. And my wife and I together recorded 261 episodes of the weekly Lost podcast. That podcast in and of itself reached more than 60,000 people around the world. Not 60,000 downloads. The downloads were in the millions. But the number of subscribers to that podcast by the time the show ended, the TV show ended after 6 years, 60,000 subscribers. And as a result of the engagement and the community that we were building through that, we launched other podcasts. And yes, I did. I launched podcasts related to faith. I had a podcast called The Almost Daily Devotional, which was almost daily. I had a podcast which originally was called About the Church, and it was later rebranded to Encouraging Others Through Christ. I created a bunch of technology podcast called Help I Got a Mac, Business Tech Weekly, Social Media Serenity. I was just having a blast. And for me, it was all about building relationships with a community of people around the world where our relationships were built upon shared passions. And my desire was the same then as what it is today. And that is to entertain, educate, encourage, and inspire. Now, 1 year later, actually 1 week short of a year later, on December 9th, 2006, I launched episode 001 of this podcast. Now, it wasn't always called The Cliff Ravenscraft Show for the first 480 or 500, I don't know how many episodes. It was several hundred episodes before it was The Cliff Ravenscraft Show. It was originally called Podcast Answer Man. And this actually was the 6th podcast that I had launched in my first year of podcasting. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you the first 7 minutes of the very first ever episode of this podcast, as it was originally called Podcast Answer Man.
Hey, this is Eric Fisher, and this episode is made possible in part by me and other listeners like me. I have a tight budget, but I choose to make a $3 donation each month to make sure that these great shows continue. Making a donation is easy. Just go to generallyspeakingpodcast.com and click on the PayPal donate button. I don't even have to have a PayPal account to do it. And now, enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the podcast Answer Man podcast. This is a podcast production of the Generally Speaking Podcast Network. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and I've been podcasting since December 16th, 2005. And I started back then with one single podcast devoted to the hit ABC show Lost. And since that time, I now produce, actually this will be my 6th self-produced podcast. And in the past year, our network has now served more than 500,000 downloads. So you're asking yourself, okay, Cliff's got another podcast. What's this one about? Well, I think the title of the show, Podcast Answer Man, may give you some indication, but I do want to make a couple notes about what this podcast is. First off, this is the official step that I am taking to transition podcasting from as a hobby over to podcasting for for an income, part-time employment. In fact, Stephanie and I have been talking, my wife Stephanie and I have been talking, and we have now figured it out that podcasting is very much a part of my life, and I'm actually going to be scheduling a minimum of 15 to 20 hours a week to podcasting. And this has been possible through quite a few turns of events. We have some wonderful listeners who help support the Generally Speaking Podcast Network with monthly donations and one-time donations via PayPal and sending payments to our P.O. Box in Hebron, Kentucky. And that has been a tremendous blessing to help cover the cost of bandwidth. And recently, through some cooperation with TalkShoe.com and doing some live podcasts there, it's enabled me to receive an income, a very small income at this point, but definitely not enough to necessitate 15 to 20 hours a week. But one of the things that I'm just concerned, or that has concerned me, is that I can't stop thinking about podcasting. And so I have decided that in conjunction with producing podcasts, I'm also going to be starting on the side podcast consulting. And so hopefully I can use this podcast as a method of answering commonly asked questions that I get in the emails. And I can actually answer those questions rather than answering one person on what's the best tool to use to do this if I'm starting a podcast, and just answering that to that one person. I'd like to answer those questions here in this podcast so that the multitudes of people who listen to this will have the benefit of those answers. And so that's one of the things that I'm hoping to do, but I'm hoping that this podcast will attract a certain type of individual, actually 3 different types of individuals, but specifically for podcast consulting, people who are either considering podcasting for personal use, business use, or ministry use, that they might be interested in hiring me on for one-on-one podcast consulting, either by phone or in person. So if you're interested in some podcast consulting work, just give me a call, and I'd be happy to arrange that with you. And you can email me at cliff@ravenscraft.org, and I'll share that with you again at the end of this show. Now, let's see here. One of the things that I have decided to do is, obviously I want to do some podcast consulting, and hopefully I'll be able to do that for a fee that would pay for the time that I devote to doing that on a one-on-one basis. But I don't want to only share the experience I have in podcasting for a fee. God has tremendously blessed me with a passion and some gifts that just have come natural in the area of podcasting, and I don't want to only just sell that. So I wanted to have an avenue or an outlet where I can come and freely give advice and help answer some questions for people who are trying to do what I started just a year ago. And so that's why I'm here with this podcast. And this podcast, just like all the other podcasts of the Generally Speaking Podcast Network, will be free for download. There is no fee, and this show is listener supported, just like all of our other shows. Occasionally, we may have a sponsor. And I just want to let you know that I make no promises regarding commercialism or anything like that. In fact, I'm sure that how to incorporate commercial sponsors into your podcasting, if that's something you're looking to do, may be a future topic of this show. But anyway, really, I have a desire to help people, individuals, learn how to get into podcasting, whether that be podcasting your own personal passions, such as a favorite TV show that you watch, or maybe you have a hobby of maybe it's RC airplanes or hobby helicopters or whatever your passion is, and you want to just share your knowledge with people and find other like-minded individuals out there. I think that would be excellent. And I will tell you that if you're a personal individual who wants to get into the field of podcasting, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you are able to listen to this podcast, chances are you have everything you need already to start podcasting tomorrow. Actually, you could start podcasting today if you knew how. And it doesn't matter what your budget is. Maybe you have no money whatsoever. I'm telling you, you can start a podcast with absolutely no money starting out. Absolutely, all you need is a telephone and a connection to the internet, and it doesn't even have to be your own computer. So there's no boundary out there other than just the knowledge of how to do it, and that's why I want to help you as an individual.
Well, there you go. That was the first 7 minutes of what was originally the podcast Answer Man. This podcast, which, of course, over time, I made that major pivot and transitioned this show from Podcast Answer Man into the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. Another name, subtitle for this podcast, and maybe even the title of this show could be considered Mindset Answer Man. But no, it's the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. Anyway, a couple notes that I took as I was listening back to that. Number one, you'll notice that I was doing listener-supported podcasting way before anybody ever heard of something called Patreon. Those were the fun days, let me tell you. This podcast was my first step in transitioning from podcasting as a hobby to podcasting more for an income. At the time, obviously, I shared that it was just a side business. And the idea at that time when I first launched this, that I would ever leave my career in insurance, what a pipe dream that was. You know, that in my mind, that's how I thought about it. So like, this is obviously never going to turn into something that I could leave my secure and absolutely lucrative and financially profitable. I mean, I had it made working in a family insurance agency owned by my mom and dad. I had already been there for, I guess, 10 years at that time. And then, if I would have stayed, I would have owned the agency. My dad has since retired. And if I wouldn't have left the world of insurance, I would own an insurance agency right now. And my income would be well over $1 million a year. But you know what? At the time that I'm just thinking, man, it'd be cool if I could make some income from this, just a little something on the side. And yes, while I didn't say it in that first episode, I did have the pipe dream. I wonder what life would be like if I could do this full time. And in my mind, it's like, yeah, okay, my pipe dream is maybe 5 to 10 years. Little did I know that 9 months later, I'd put in my 90-day notice. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so another thing that I noticed is that I had mentioned one thing that has concerned me. I can't stop thinking about podcasting. And it wasn't podcasting actually that I couldn't stop thinking of. It was the world that podcasting had opened up for me. It was the impact and influence that I was having in the lives of the people who were consuming the podcasts that I was producing. And it was the engagement that I was having them. It's like, that's what I couldn't stop thinking about. And I wanted to continue to give them more and more content because that content was entertaining them. It was keeping them company. They were learning from what I was teaching. They were picking up what I was laying down. You know what I mean? They were walking away encouraged. They were like, man, I can't wait to hear another episode of Cliff Ravenscraft because he makes my day brighter. I heard that all the time. It's like, man, you motivate me. You encourage me. You inspire me. Because of you, I'm doing this. Because of you, I did this. Because of you. And, of course, obviously one thing you can tell from the first 7 minutes of this compare that to the first 4.5 minutes of the first episode I did a year earlier, the audio quality had certainly improved. There were noticeably less ums and ahs, but man, there were still a ton of them there. Now, I still find that I have some ums and ahs and all that other stuff in the content that I create today. And there are some times that I go back in and I polish and I edit, and there are sometimes I just let them go. But if I'm honest, I'm thinking there haven't been a lot of ums and ahs in this. I kind of hear them as they come for the most part, and I haven't done them. And why is that? Well, first of all, if you're thinking, man, I wish I could communicate in a podcast episode like Cliff does. He just hits record and he can free flow with his ideas. Sure, sometimes he has a little bit of an outline, but man, you can just tell that most of what he says is coming off the top of his head. It's just flowing from him. And he may occasionally say, or something like that. But the reality is that he doesn't do that. Well, I want you to know that how long did I say this was? For over the past 13 and a half years, I want you to know I have recorded and published over 3,800 podcast episodes. So I've been doing this for a little while. I've upped my game a little bit. All right? So don't compare your today to what's that one? Anyway, don't compare my 3,800th episode to your first 20 or 30 or even 50. By the way, by the time I recorded this first episode of this podcast, 1 year into my podcasting journey, I'd already recorded at least, 52 times, probably about 300 or 400 episodes. And I still had ums and ahs, as if you go back and listen to the first episode of this one. So, but here's the thing, still wasn't perfect. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't say, oh my gosh, I'm calling myself the podcast answer man because I am the go-to world's leading authority in all things podcast. I never said that. You could go back if you wanted to and listen to the very first episode. In fact, what didn't get included, a little bit just shortly after I ended the playback of that episode for you, shortly after that, I said, listen, I want you to understand, I'm not saying that I have all the answers. In fact, there are lots of people out there who've been podcasting longer than I have. They know far more than I do, and I certainly don't know everything, but here's what I can tell you. I may not have all of the answers, but I know where to get them. And if you have a question, I will find them. And see, the thing is the first episode of this very podcast, there's one thing that it had in common with the other one. I was 100% confident that I had value to offer my audience. My friends, that's what you most need if you're going to create something. If you're worried about, will people like me? Will people be impressed by it? Is it perfect? Is it polished? None of that stuff matters. Those are the kinds of fears that hold you back and paralyze you from moving forward. Those are the same fears that kept me from experiencing joy leading up to any public speaking opportunity that I ever had. Gosh, I'd have speaking opportunities, and the weeks leading up to it were just nerve-wracking, anxiety-filled, trying to figure out, oh my gosh, what am I going to put in this talk that will impress everyone? And then there was the night before the event, not being able to sleep, stomach discomfort, wondering, was I going to be able to make it through the entire talk without having to use the bathroom? Because certainly the night before my talk, I was experiencing all sorts of issues. And it was just crazy how much worry, anxiety, and fear I had leading up to public speaking opportunities back in 2010, 2011, 2012, and even 2013. course, all of that changed for me when I went to the SCORE speaker conference where I got coached by my friend Ken Davis. And he says, Cliff, do you want to know why you are experiencing all of those symptoms, all of those issues? He says it's simple. You're making it all about you. See, if you just get over yourself and realize that it's not about impressing people, it's not about them liking you, it's not about them making fun of you or whatever the case may be, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is, did you give them what they came to get? For example, what is the talk that you're giving? What is it that they need to walk away with? And of course, he said, Cliff, you've got two options. You're going to either do an enabling talk or a persuasive talk. An enabling talk means that you're going to teach somebody how to do something. If it's a persuasive, you're going to teach them why they should and convince them to go out and do it. So what are you there to do? Are you going to enable or persuade? Whatever that is, go do that. It doesn't matter what you wear, how you look, how much weight you have on, don't have on. It's not about you. It's about what you deliver to them, aka value. And that's what I want to share with you today, here in my 600th podcast episode. A shorter episode, if you will. I just want to encourage you. What is it that you've decided that you'd love to do? What is it that you would like to have as a part of your life that's not currently in it? What is it that you've been dreaming of? Something that you've been wanting to do, something that you've been putting off, and quite frankly, all it would take for you to really make this a reality in your life is for you to just take some massive action and get it up and running within the next couple days, if not by the end of today. What's holding you back? Let me ask you this. Do you really want what it is that you've been putting off? If so, if you genuinely, honestly want whatever it is that's in your mind right now, there's something that you're thinking of. There's something that is not a part of your life today that you desperately want to have in your life. Maybe that's a podcast. Maybe that's your own business. Maybe that's greater health and fitness. Maybe that's a better relationship with your spouse. Maybe it's a better relationship with one of your kids or all of your kids. Maybe whatever it is, maybe it's more money. Maybe it's a vacation to Europe with your family. What is it that you have desperately longed to have in your life, but you keep putting it off, and putting it off? If you truly, honestly want it and you don't have it, the first thing that I would recommend you do is say, what can I do within the next 24 hours, no matter how small, that will get me one step closer? Decide today that you will have whatever it is that you want in your life. Decide right now, nothing is going to keep me from having this in my life. Draw a line in the sand today and ask yourself, what is one thing I can do today that will get me, or within the next 24 hours, that will get me one step closer? And then I want you to answer another question. What is 1, 2, or 3 things I can do within the next 7 days? No matter how small those 3 things are, 1, 2, or 3 things, what is 1, 2, or 3 things I can do within the next 7 days that will get me each step closer to making that thing a part of my life? All right? Answer those questions, and then whatever you say for the next 24 hours, do it within the next 24 hours. Whatever you do, say for the 1, 2, or 3 things within the next 7, do it within the next 7 days. Email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, and put next 7 days and tell me what are the 1, 2, or 3 things that you're going to do. I'd love to hear. Cliff at cliffravenscraft.com. Put next 7 days as the subject of your email. I want to hear from you. What are you going to take massive action on? That you're not going to wait until it's perfect. You're not going to wait until you're polished. You're not going to wait until you have everything just right. Just start today. And if you haven't done so already, make sure that you go over to mindsetanswerman.com/free and watch the opening keynote address of the Free the Dream conference from 2018. This conference, in the opening keynote address, I did an opening talk called All Beliefs Have Consequences. And in that talk, you will learn, number one, what is a belief? You'd be so shocked. You might think you know what it is, and maybe if you heard me tell you a couple times recently, you might know. But I was 45 years old before I learned what a belief is. And when you learn that it's just a thought that you feel certain is true, but man, every single one of those things, every one of those thoughts you have that you feel certain is true, it has a consequence in your life. Some good, a lot bad. You'll learn all about that. And not only that, you'll understand where your beliefs came from, how you can disassociate yourself from those beliefs, replace them with empowering beliefs, and completely, radically change your behavior. If you have something that you desperately want in your life, but you've not taken action on it, I promise you, if you go to mindsetanswerman.com/free and watch that 1 hour talk, you'll begin to understand why you have not taken action. So go start with the first thing within the 24 hours, the 1, 2, or 3 things within the next 7 days. And by golly, if by the end of the next 7 days you have not done all of that, then you have to go to mindsetanswerman.com/free and watch the video. And then, of course, I would encourage you to come to Free the Dream 2019 this September 13th through the 15th. Tickets are available now for 25% off here on May 31st, 2019. But what I will tell you is I don't have the date when the next price increase is coming up because that's on my schedule to work on Monday when I get back in the office next week. But let's just put it this way. You don't have very much longer to save 25% off of your tickets. And yes, when you go to freethedreamconference.com and you click on reserve your seat now and you see the prices, it's not a cheap, it's not inexpensive for you to attend this conference. But here's what I want to tell you. The results that you get are not going to be typical. I will promise you this. You come to Free the Dream Conference, your life will change forever. Go back and listen to episode 599. Go back and listen to episode 598. Hear how people's lives are being transformed by understanding the power of beliefs. And not only that, but today, on Friday, May 31st, 2019, I recorded 6 conversations for the purpose of testimonial video and audio from 6 different individuals who came to Free the Dream 2018 and actually already purchased Free the Dream 2019 tickets for next year or for this year. Now, that's not all that I'm going to be interviewing. I have lots more testimonials to do. And by the way, if you were at Free the Dream 2018 and I haven't yet invited you to do one of these one-on-one Zoom calls with me for 15 minutes, feel free to jump ahead of the line and email me, just Cliff at cliffravenscraft.com, Free the Dream testimonial in the subject line. I'll get you scheduled. I can't wait to talk to you. And maybe starting next week, I will have already taken these first 6 testimonials and edited the videos just right and the audio just right. And I'll start including them, and you'll begin to hear from folks exactly what it is Free the Dream is in their words and why you must attend. But man, don't wait. If you're already on the fence, don't wait until the price goes up. Just go now. freethedreamconference.com. I can't wait to see you in Franklin, Tennessee, September 13th through the 15th. And I can't wait to hear about the action you're going to take to make whatever it is that thing that you've been thinking about in this episode as I've been talking with you, Whatever it is that you've desperately wanted in your life that's not there now, I can't wait to hear what it is and the actions you have taken to get you one step closer. No matter how small the step is, take action today. Get started today. And again, feel free to email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, and tell me what it is you're going after. Until next time, my friends, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Mindset Answer Man.